right, it looks like our participant number has slowed down a little bit, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us for the first session of the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. We've got some great guest panelists with us today that we'll introduce in just a minute. So the purpose for today's discussion, we're going to take a quick touch on the New York State minimum wage, which did increase on December 31st. We're going to talk about Career Connect versus handshake numbers and what the expectations are. And we have two representatives from Environmental Health and Safety, Sarah Klein and Phil VanChieri, who are going to join us for a discussion about their office resources, how they can help you, how they can support you in your role as a student employee supervisor, and help answer any questions you have. I know a lot of us may not think about environmental health and safety often when it comes to student employees, but it is a very important part of day-to-day operations. So we're very excited to have both Sarah and Phil here with us to share their knowledge. So we'll jump right in. Again, your student employment representatives, if you haven't met us yet, here we are. If you contact our front desk, chances are you will speak to Alex. He is our staff assistant. He is the person that responds to most of our emails that come to both department emails. He answers the phone, and he works with our student staff at the front desk to ensure that they're doing what needs to be done. And then the rest of us who you may talk to here and there. So jumping right in, New York State minimum wage did increase on December 31st of 2022. Any students who were making less than $14.20, which is the new New York State minimum wage, were automatically brought up to that rate effective 12/30/2022. So the paycheck that they will receive next week will reflect that wage rate increase effective 12/30/22. We did not touch any rates that were already above $14.20. If you as a department have different levels within your department and you'd like to raise those wages, you do need to send us a change form. We are only legally required to raise any rates that fall below that $14.20 level. So all of those have gone through. Your students will see them in their next paycheck. So next week when they get their paycheck, they will see that rate reflected. And any other raises that you want to give as a department, you can submit to us through a change form. Just note that if you submit a change form for a pay period that has already ended, you will also need to submit the payroll change to payroll to pay any difference in rate. So if you wanted to raise your student up to $15 an hour effective December 30th, and you send that to us next week, then it's not going to be retroactive. You actually have to go through and calculate that wage difference as well and submit that change form. But this is all set and your students should see that in their next paycheck. We've had a lot of questions, conversations regarding Handshake and RIT Career Connect. In July of 2020, RIT ceased using Handshake and we transitioned to RIT Career Connect as our job description, job posting platform. At that time, any jobs and any contacts that were in Handshake were automatically brought into Career Connect. So you could access all of your job descriptions in Career Connect. They were also given a new Career Connect ID number. The Career Connect ID number associates to a job description that's in Career Connect, and that is a searchable number. RIT can no longer access any job descriptions that are in Handshake. We don't have the ability to get into the system. We cannot search it, and we cannot search Handshake numbers in Career Connect. It's very important that we have the appropriate job number on every hire form, particularly for audit purposes. If we are involved in an audit and an auditor requests from us a job description that is tied to a student hire form, and we cannot produce that job description because we can't access it, we can face some significant compliance issues, including fines to the university. The Career Connect number gives us the opportunity to go into Career Connect, pull that job description, and provide it to our auditors. So moving forward, we can no longer accept handshake numbers. We do have to push back and request that you access Career Connect and put the appropriate number on the hire form so that we have accurate hire records. If you don't have a Career Connect account yet, you can work with Amanda Henry, who is our assistant director. She is our student employment guru when it comes to Career Connect, and she can get you set up with an account, set up with access to all of the jobs within the department that you're working in, and get you rolling in the program. If you've moved departments and you're no longer with one department and you're in a new department, she can get you updated in Career Connect so that you're not accessing jobs that you no longer are responsible for. So any questions, you can reach out either directly to Amanda. You can contact me, or you can send questions to the student employment email, and we will do our best to answer them as quickly as possible. But moving forward, we do need those Career Connect numbers. We do need to be able to access job descriptions if requested, and we can no longer do that in Handshake, which is why we can't allow those to be submitted any longer. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to Phil and to Sarah. If you have questions or anything throughout the course of the presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we can get to those once all of the information is shared. But I know they have a great presentation prepared for you, and so I'm going to turn it right over to them.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I appreciate you inviting us being here and presenting. Just a little apology in advance here. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little raspy. So if you're having trouble understanding me or hearing me, just use the chat function. Let us know. But I'll try to work my way through it as best as I can. So yeah, environmental health and safety. It's a department here within RIT. There's a number of us that are a resource for all of you. So whether you've heard of us before, great. I know a lot of people probably haven't heard of us, also great. And we'll try to, this presentation, it's not very long, but it's going to give you a 30,000-foot view of kind of what we do for all of you. And, I'm going to leave time at the end for a Q&A. So, maybe in the future, depending on how the Q&A session goes, it could be more of a geared presentation or more specific presentation. So you can go ahead and switch the slide, Rachel. So like I said, there was a number of us. Currently, there's 7 of us in the group. This is us. We are currently hiring an 8th person. So once we are a full team, we will be a team of 8 health and safety and environmental professionals. And we have a number of different roles, of which I'll go over in this presentation. But just, so you can put names to faces. Sarah's here as well. She's our director. She oversees everything, makes sure the rest of us are staying on track. And then there's Mike, Colleen, Jody, Joe, Cindy, and myself, all doing different programs. Next slide, please, Rachel. Thank you. So where are we located? We are in Building 99, all the way tucked by, across the street from Apex Apartments there, across John Street. We are with FMS. We work closely with FMS as well as housing. So we are in the same building as that. If you enter on the south western side of the building, we are right inside of there. So that's where we are located. You'll see there our phone number. For the general office, we all have our own phones as well if you want to reach us that way. Next slide. So what do we do? So I'll break this down into different groups. So the first one I put on here is the occupational health and safety aspect of our job. So what is that? So occupational health and safety, right? It's first and foremost is compliance with OSHA, and OSHA is a federal agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, that was created back in the 70s to ensure that people aren't getting hurt on the job, getting hurt at work, and they set out a bunch of different regulations in different program areas to make sure that employers are abiding safely into protecting their employees. What we here at Environmental Health and Safety at RIT do is ensure, first and foremost, that we are in compliance with these federal regulations. So you may ask, how does that pertain to me and my job? Well, the main thing is to think of it as injury prevention, or staying safe and healthy, or that kind of thing. So when we're in compliance, it's great, but it's also making sure that we have that injury prevention aspect of everything as well. We also work in with risk mitigation. So when we're out and about on campus, we're looking for things that maybe are out of compliance, or maybe seem a little risky, or maybe someone asks us to take a look at a situation that might not seem safe as an employee, right? I'm being put in this unsafe situation. We can figure out how to mitigate that risk. Next slide, please. Okay, so another aspect of what we do is fire and life safety. So we have professionals that are specialized in fire hazard mitigation. So all of your state fire codes, building codes, whether it's checking fire extinguishers or emergency exits, and that fun stuff. They also help out with AEDs. So your automatic external defibrillators. So your AEDs on campus, they run that program, as well as event safety. So making sure that, when there's concerts or commencement or convocation, all those events are, they have all the fire and life safety supplies that they need to make sure everybody's staying safe there. Next. We also do a lot of work with laboratory safety. I'm sure a lot of you have lab work within your classwork, your programs that you're here for class. So we also have a side in making sure that we're compliant with OSHA's laboratory standards as well. And a part of that is doing regular lab inspection, right? A lot of these labs have high risk situations, in high hazard situations. Excuse me. So a part of our job is to make sure that our labs are compliant, are safe, making sure we have the proper PPE and other things going on there. That can include chemical safety, biological safety, radiation safety, all that fun stuff. Next. And last, but certainly not least, the E in EHS stands for environment. So we do have a professional that ensures our environmental, our compliance with environmental regulations. So the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the EPA, the federal agency that sets regulatory standards for protecting the environment. They also deal with hazardous waste, electronic waste, universal waste collection, and any questions on what is hazardous waste, that kind of thing, as well as permitting and safety inspections on that side of things as well. So that's what we do, from a higher level. So I took this right from our webpage, this snippet, and you can kind of see the more specific program areas under each of them. So the list is long, But we're all pretty well versed in each of these programs. And like I said, the first thing we check for is compliance, right? But then you know, we want to make sure that we're keeping people safe on top of that as well. Okay, next slide. So one thing I like to remind everybody is that we are a free resource on campus for you. RIT provides us for you for whatever you need for your safety needs. So we're here to train. We could train in any of the programs that we're specialized in. Train your employees. You know, making sure that they're compliant, they're up to date with their training, or if you're just curious on a topic, you know, we're here for that. We're here to assess and inspect and to audit our different programs to make sure that you're staying safe. So I just like to reiterate that, you know, we are a resource. We're not here trying to be like police, right? We're not trying to say, oh, you know, that you're not being safe over there or something like that. We want you to bring us in and make sure that you are doing the safe thing, that your employees are staying safe, and and that it's a free resource to bring us in. So don't hesitate to call us in on something like that. Next. Okay, so question for all of you. Excuse me. So I think if you can use the chat function, I'd like to see everybody's opinion or what they might think. You know, I'd like to see what you all think, what the most common occupational injury is. So by occupational, I mean someone's clocked in and they get hurt doing a job task. What do you think is the most common cause of injury?
And if you want to go ahead and just type that in the chat so we can see what your thoughts are campus wide, what the most common injury is. You know, we'll read them off as they come in.
Oh, they're saying chat is disabled.
You can flood the Q&A.
Yeah, that works too. If you want to flood the Q&A. So I had one person, Deborah, submit falling. That's a good one. It's probably, so I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's probably the most, especially in New York, right? Icy situations and that such. It's probably the most common injury, I would say. At least at my prior institution it was, but not occupational related. So there's kind of a line drawn there, right? So as a student, you know, you're walking on campus, you fall, it's not really considered occupational. So Sarah said lifting, another good one. It's also up there as well. But not number one. Getting hit by a skateboard, that's a good one. Thank you, anonymous attendee, for that one. Not quite. Paper cuts, burns, I see. Yeah, burns are up there as well. Labs, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you're all on the right track. I'm gonna go back to Chuck though. He had the first one to say it, cuts. He said burns or cuts, and actually that's the right answer, because it flip-flops. But the number one employee-related incident on campus is cuts in a dining setting, right? So whether it's from improper use of a knife or carelessness or, you know, what have you, yes, that is common. Yeah. I like the answers though. All right, next slide, please, Rachel. So we have these incidents, right? We have cuts in a dining setting, or maybe someone threw out their back because they're lifting improperly, what have you. What does EHS do? You know, what can we do to serve our employees in that sense? So how can we work to reduce these incidents? the first thing we'd like to do, as safety professionals is what I like to call root cause assessment. It goes by a lot of different names: root cause analysis, incident investigation, that sort of thing. But the main thing is to find the root cause of why something's happening. So we would try to find trends. We would trend data on, maybe it's a certain department that's at fault, or maybe it's a certain demographic, what have you. Finding the root cause. Is it lack of training? We would do PPE assessments. So PPE has been big ever since COVID started, right? So we know PPE is personal protective equipment. What type of PPE can we use in dining to reduce these injuries? So do we have cut gloves, or if it's burns, right? Are we using our oven mitts when we're taking out? Are we cutting corners? And if we have PPE, are employees trained properly on how to use them? Do they know the limitations of wearing PPE? Do they know so on and so forth? And then training, of course, I brought that up, just general training, orientation training. Is that something that students are being trained about on their first day on the job, or are they just being thrown to the wolves for that? So those are the kind of things that we would look into, and we would work with you to improve these things. Next slide, please. And on top, in a similar vein, right? How do we get this data, and why is it important? So I'm just using this moment to just kind of put the point home that reporting all incidents is important for us to make sure that we can follow up as early as possible, so we can nip it in the bud as soon as we can. And that's no matter the severity. So maybe it's just a small little nick from a knife or something like that. It could have been more serious. Maybe it didn't involve, it didn't need stitches to be healed, but it could have. Or if it was, even if someone was seen without cut gloves using a knife or a deli slicer or something like that, that could be considered a near miss. It doesn't hurt to get these reported as soon as possible. It's more important to catch it before it turns into a serious incident, right? So making sure that we are following up with that. And Rachel, I don't know if you could pull up that link, or so it's important to know how to
There we go. Can we see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks good. So this is done through HR. PJ Britt is our workers' compensation HR employee. She is the one that handles taking our injury illness reports. And this is who I get data from, and she's the one, we're in good communication, so we know, where incidents are happening and stuff. And she came up with this little flow chart. It's just so what's going on. So there's a workplace injury, right? Someone, we've been talking about getting cut, so someone slices themselves pretty good. Does it seem like it's a serious incident? Is there something beyond first aid going, like beyond just needing a Band-Aid or like burn cream for a burn, right? Is it something more serious? Then we're calling public safety in that in that case. If it's not, the next thing we're going to ask, is it during regular business hours? If you could scroll down there a little bit. So they have numbers to reach out, who to reach out to, and so Sue Hill is the RIT nurse case manager for workers' comp injuries. the main thing to know is if it is an injury during working hours, you would be calling that number. And then we would be seeking medical care if need be. And then after that, the supervisors is the one to be filling out the accident report form and giving it to PJ. So in that case, so I think the important thing to take home there is, these numbers are available for you. If it's a serious incident, we're calling public safety, and if not, we are following the other steps there.
And Phil, I just want to clarify, this is for everybody, right? I know we're talking a lot about dining, and dining managers, we're not picking on you by any means. It just happens that, everybody understands a cut and what causes a cut. But this is for everybody campus wide, whether it's somebody who, trips on the carpet in your office or slams their finger in the drawer or, in a lab. This is for everybody, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I don't mean to pick on dining. It's just an easy, one to relate to, because we all work with knives and use knife implementations and stuff. And
absolutely.
But yeah, absolutely. Even if you're clocked in and you're walking outside and you slip down some icy steps, that's the tree that you're going to be following there. So yeah, no matter where or when it happens. Yep. Good question. Thank you. So how to contact us? All our contact information is on our website, rit.edu/EHS. And you can find all of our information on that website. All of our resources are there too. We have documentation, training links. We have all sorts of different resources. Even if you're just curious as to what a program is, we have pretty good information out there as well. And then I think that's all I had. Yeah. So
yeah, thanks, Phil. That was really very informative. And I did check out your website after our first conversation, and there really is just a ton of information available regarding everything. So if you need assistance, certainly reach out. So we are going to open it up for Q&A. If you have questions regarding anything discussed today, whether it's for Phil and Sarah or for the Student Employment Office, you can go ahead and put those up in the chat. In the Q&A, and we will answer those as they come in. And so our first one that did come in, it is regarding the handshake versus Career Connect numbers. Says, why was an email not sent that we needed to switch to Career Connect? Also, why is there no consistency in which ID is being accepted? And this is a great question. I will say that when we transitioned to Career Connect 2.5 years ago, we did inform the campus that we were going to provide a grace period. Because of the chaotic nature of COVID, we were right in the middle of COVID. We were, information was coming so fast and so furious. We had already started implementation before COVID hit and campus shut down, and we could not stop the implementation at that time. So we moved forward with implementation and shared with the campus that we would provide a grace period given everything that was going on and the amount of information that was coming out, so that departments could utilize handshake numbers at the same time while they got a better feel and better understanding for Career Connect. We have allowed that grace period to go on for 2.5 years. We have on numerous occasions shared in our Q&A sessions through email communication that has gone out, indicated that RIT Career Connect numbers are the appropriate numbers to be using. At this time, because we can no longer access handshake, we cannot continue to accept those handshake numbers. Many of our departments are up and running on Career Connect. We have, some departments that have struggled with turnover, with whatnot, and they haven't been able to get up and running as quickly. And now we are using this time for spring hiring, which is a lot lighter than fall hiring. to really ensure that we are compliant 100% across the campus and we don't have issues going into spring hiring. We do not want to delay any spring hires. We don't want to delay students getting on your payroll. We don't want to delay them getting on your schedule. So we need to make sure that now is the time that we get this taken care of. And the consistency in which ID being accepted, yes, certainly that's on us. However, we have Alex at the front desk who is very skilled in identifying what number is a Career Connect number and what is a handshake number. We have had many student employees come and go within our office, and they have not been able to get up and comfortable with which one is which. So Alex is responsible for that. He can identify very quickly and provide you the information to access those Career Connect numbers quickly. Brandy asks, when you have grad assistants, you have to put an end date on the hire form. If they are working the fall and spring semester, can I just put the spring semester end date? Do I need a rehire for the spring? No, Brandy, you can hire them for the full academic year. We just need to know what that end date is in spring. And sometimes, as much as we try to get the payroll sign-off schedule from the powers that be who are responsible for publishing that, sometimes we don't have that when the fall semester starts. If we do and it's available on our website, then absolutely, we are happy to have you hire a student all the way through the academics year, put the start and the end date. If the end date's the next spring, that's perfectly fine. I feel like there could be better communication between SEO and managers. To expect us to remember from 2 years ago is difficult. And we have covered this on multiple occasions in this session, in the Q&A session. Unfortunately, if you haven't been able to attend or you haven't been able to register so that you get the link to listen to at a later date, it has been covered on numerous occasions. We do recommend that even if you know you're not going to be able to attend the session, you register. That way you get the link the following day and you can listen to it at your leisure. You know, whether you're doing paperwork in your office and you just put your earbud in and listen to it, but we do make it available so that everybody can have access to the information, and you don't necessarily need to be here every second Wednesday at 1:30 to hear it. Great questions. Is there any questions for Phil and Sarah? Anything that they can help you out with, you know, in particular within your department or for your overall training for your students? I know we've got spring semester starting soon, so some of you will have a lot of new students coming in, and I'm sure they can help provide some.
One of the things that I just wanted to mention really quick, because a lot of times people don't think about this until someone gets hurt. But your student employees are considered employees. And so when a student is injured and they go to the health center, they are typically sent through that flow chart and sent to either Rochester immediate care or things like that as an employee. And so sometimes, particularly, I think probably some of your departments don't have injuries very often, or if they do, maybe not so serious. And so it's like, oh, I'll just send them to the health center. When a student is clocked in, they are an employee. And so at that point, those rules take over. And so sometimes that can be really frustrating in the moment. It's happened a couple of times recently. That's why I'm mentioning it. And so we just want you to be aware of that and think about that beforehand. But that flow chart is for all employees, students included, and how we handle that. So thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And that is a great point. You know, students on campus, their academic records and their employment records are very separate. So they are, in the eyes of the law, considered an employee of RIT. That student piece of it is not even taken into consideration when it comes to, you know, compliance, wage and hour compliance, all of those type of things. They are employees. And then, you know, obviously they're students, but when they're working, they are RIT employees. Question just came in. It says, I complete the graduate stipend paperwork for my graduate students. I never get notifications about these sessions and have to ask my colleagues. So the invitation for these sessions comes out through RIT Career Connect. If you do not yet have an account set up, you can work with Amanda Henry. Again, she's our guru within the office, and she will get you set up with an account and make sure you have the appropriate permissions to be receiving the emails from our office. And this goes for anybody within your department. They don't need to be a job posting manager or a hiring manager to be able to have a Career Connect account with student employment privileges. We recommend that anybody within your department who does manage students in any capacity have an account so that they can get this information and they can attend these sessions and get whatever emails that we do send out. Can you create some sort of ticketing system so that we know if the hire paperwork we have submitted has been processed? I submit and hear nothing, and it would be helpful to get some acknowledgement of the form being processed. So first and foremost, the student will appear in your Chronos once the hire paperwork has been processed. It takes us generally 24 to 72 hours to process a hire form, depending on the time of year. And then the student will appear in your Chronos. So you want to keep an eye on your Chronos list and watch for them to appear. If 3 days has passed and they haven't appeared, then I highly encourage you to reach out to our office. If we're approaching the end of the pay period and you don't see them in there yet, certainly reach out to our office. Do not wait until Friday morning after the pay period is ended, because then we're restricted from the system. We are currently working on some new processes within the department and with our partners in ITS and HR. And hopefully we will have some new procedures in the next 12 months for more of an electronic processing system. But these things take time. And like I said, we are working and we're hoping to move towards that. So let's hope that comes and keep that on the horizon. But right now, your best goal is to keep an eye on Chronos and make sure that if they don't show up within 3 business days, that you do reach out. Now, with that said, if you've hired them for a future pay period, they're not going to show up in your Chronos list until the start of that pay period. So if you're submitting a hire form today for a pay period that starts Friday, the earliest they could possibly show up would be Friday, the start of that pay period. Okay, this is a follow-up to the previous question. It says stipend graduate students do not show up in Chronos. Okay, so first of all, if they're being paid a stipend, they're not being processed through our office at all. Stipends are paid to graduate research assistantships or leadership positions, leadership stipends. We do not process stipends through our office. If you are paying a salary to a graduate teaching assistant, then you're correct. They are not going to appear in Chronos. You can reach out to me directly, as I am the one who processes all of the GTA paperwork, and just ask if it's been processed. Are they in there? Is it all set to go? I'm happy to look it up and let you know. But you're correct. Those ones do not appear in Chronos, but we want to make sure we're using the appropriate terminology, because you could end up going down the wrong path if you're asking for stipends versus salaries. Stipends are processed through accounts payable, which is completely outside of our office. This question is, we have students who need to be hired soon. Are you making appointments this week? Absolutely. We have been open since January 3rd, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, accepting appointments. So encourage your students to get on the schedule. I will tell you that next week is already starting to fill up. Monday is pretty full. So if we can get students in, tomorrow and Friday, we would certainly prefer that, so we can get them on your ready to go and working for you. This question comes from Jeffrey. How do you know if you have a handshake number or a Career Connect number on our current archived jobs? Handshake numbers are 7-digit numbers. Currently, Career Connect numbers are no more than 5 numbers long. The numbers that the jobs that were brought in from Handshake, those are usually 2, 3, or 4 numbers. So if you are using a number that is more than 5 numbers long right now, it's not a Career Connect number. It's an old Handshake number, and we can't accept that.
And just to add to that, if you're looking at your archive jobs list, it'll have the job title and then the Career Connect ID right below it. So it'll immediately say title and then it will say ID and give you, like Rachel said, anywhere from 2 to 5 digit number. That's your Career Connect number.
Question, are you going to start offering any walk-in days for students to complete their I-9? We are operating by appointment only. What we would encourage your students to do is call us in the morning and see if we have any same-day cancellations or same-day openings. While we are not accepting walk-ins, we will take same-day appointments if we have the staff available and the time available. Unfortunately, students can only schedule appointments 24 hours in advance. So, at 2:15 this afternoon, we could certainly have 5 or 6 appointments available for tomorrow morning, but the students aren't going to be able to see those in the system. Have them give our office a call, ask us if we have any openings for that day, and we're happy to get them in if we have the slots open on our schedule. These are all. Yep, go ahead.
I just want to add, I did just review the open appointments. We have many for tomorrow afternoon. Almost all day Friday has wide open appointments if you've got students who are available in here. Monday is booked up right now. We're going to try and see if we can clear any of those out, make some extra room. And then starting Tuesday through Friday next week, we have a lot of appointments still available. So if students are proactive and they're putting that appointment in now, they'll be able to get in very early next week.
Great, thanks for that, Amanda. All right. These are all great questions. We've still got a few minutes left, so I'm happy to take on any more as you're heading into the fall hiring. If you are newer to the student employment program at RIT, you've never hired students or are not real comfortable or real versed in the hiring procedures, you are welcome to reach out to our office. Amanda offers an excellent training through the CPD, which covers all aspects of hiring students on campus, including Career Connect and how to utilize it properly. If we don't have a session scheduled, she is more than happy to schedule some either one-on-one time or time with your department to do some training. I know we've had a couple requests come in and we thank you for that, for us to come in and attend a training within some academic departments to cover policies, procedures, and the whys behind them. So thank you to those who have reached out and asked us to come to your departments. We are very excited to partner with you and come and do these. And we're certainly open to the invitation and happy to join. As I'm sure Sarah and Phil are as well. If they can help you in any way, shape, or form, they're more than happy to do so.
Absolutely. Sometimes too, if you think of something afterwards, please email us. ehs@rit.edu is a generic email. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about student employees, but also full-time employees or any of the, injuries, incidents, and safety questions you might have.
Excellent. So Karen has a great question that just came in. It says, are we still paying students if they test positive for COVID, and how many hours should they be paid? So Karen, yes, the New York State COVID pay is still in place. They must provide to you the affidavit. Amanda, I can't call, I'm having a brain freeze right now, what the name of that document is. The affirmation, that's what it is. That they get from Monroe County when they report their positive test. If they can provide to you that affirmation of positive COVID test, then they are entitled to New York State COVID pay. And that pay would be for any hours that they miss because they cannot work that they were scheduled for. So if they send you that document today and they were scheduled for 4 hours this afternoon, they would get New York State COVID pay for 4 hours this afternoon. and they get that for up to 14 days. So hopefully that answers your question. There is no end date for that New York State COVID pay requirement. So that is still in place until further notice.
This makes me think too, while we have a bit of a captive audience, there are still disposable masks available. They're available on the FMS shipping and receiving dock between 8 and noon and 1 to 4. You can just show up, you can get a box of disposable masks still, if you want those for your area.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Karen did follow up with a question, where do I get the form? So the form actually will be sent to you by the student employee. They need to complete that document on the Monroe County website. And they will need to upload a photo of their positive test. And then they will get a letter in their email, the affirmation of positive COVID test, and they can email that document to you. But there's nothing that you can do for that student. They have to do that themselves.
Rachel, I think I think Monroe County has moved to self-affirmation. So there, I linked the information in the chat, but I'm pretty sure the students can fill it out themselves now.
Yes.
But all of their current policies will be on that website I linked.
Yep, it's all self-reported now. Thanks, Amanda, for that link. So Karen, if you need to, you can share this link with your student employee if they have reached out to you and said they've tested positive for COVID, and they can take it from there. Great questions as we head into the spring semester, and still valid questions, especially when it comes to COVID. You know, it hasn't gone away, it's just changed a little bit. So the way that we do things has changed a tad bit as well. You're welcome, Karen. Tony, I see you have your hand raised. Do you want to throw your question in the Q&A? No problem. It was an accident. All right, well, we have about 9 minutes left. If there's no more questions coming in, I do see some participants starting to drop off. I appreciate everybody's continued support in these Q&A sessions. You know, we're continuing to look campus-wide at our different partners to see who we can have on to join us, to share their resources with you and how they can help you. Oh, I did just have a couple last minute questions come in. Fantastic. Tony, do you know if student workers' sick time rolls over to next year? A student worker can carry up to 56 hours of sick time until they are terminated from their job. So their sick time carries through with them until they are completely terminated from RIT. And that generally happens when they graduate. So yes, a student worker's sick time rolls over, but they cannot carry more than 56 hours at a time. And this came in anonymously. I'm in Career Connect and cannot find the job number. You can reach out to Amanda and she can direct you to exactly where to find that, depending on what page you're on currently. So if you want to reach out to Amanda Henry directly, she can give you a hand on that.
Yep, and I just put my email in the chat, so make it nice and easy for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. Phil and Sarah, any parting words of wisdom as we head into spring?
Be safe out there. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Again,
Absolutely.
if you have any questions, feel free to hesitate. Well, I can't speak. I'm sick. I have a cold.
He's masking, don't worry. Yes,
Yeah.
just reach out. Student employee related, department related questions about different safety questions and concerns, please reach out. We will get you an answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great start to the semester. We look forward to getting your students on your schedules as quickly as possible. And we will talk to you next month. February 8th is our next session. If you have specific items you'd like to see us cover, feel free to send me an email. We create our agenda based on questions that we receive through our emails or phone calls or suggestions from, the RIT community. We want to make sure that we share the information that you want, and that's most important to you. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and have a great start to the semester.